Stellar Fundraising Auctions presents Inside the Industry, a special episode of Black Tie and Tails. Brought to you by our partner Sojourn Ventures, featuring your host, Greg Quiroga, and this episode's special guest, industry insider Beth Sandefur of Beth Sandefur Events. Welcome to Black Tie and Tails Inside the Industry, where we go behind the scenes in the wonderful world of fundraising auctions with an industry insider who's an expert in their field. And today I am honored to be joined by Beth Sandefur, founder of Beth Sandefur Events. She works exclusively with nonprofit organizations to plan and execute fundraising auctions, typically with a large auction component. And you're my longest running friend in this industry.
Yeah.
Like you and I go the furthest back. Welcome, Beth. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for hauling all the way over to my side of the bridge to set up in my office and do this. I'm excited.
I was going to text you like, I can see your office from here, but I can't swim with all the gear. So I was making my way around Mare Island. We're on Mare Island. We're in Beth's office, Beth Sandefur Events. And you and I have known each other for almost 20 years at this point.
Yeah.
Like it goes a long way.
Yeah.
And I think it's safe to say that you're so data driven. You're like, actually, we've worked on exactly 100 events together.
That's true. There's a giant spreadsheet. I know exactly what I've done and how much I've raised and with who and all those things. Yep.
And that's not the main reason I love you, but it's part of the reason I love you is that you can always bank on you to have like a great handle on the data. And we'll get back to that. We're going to come back to that a little later. But let's start with what inspired you to get involved and focus solely on nonprofit fundraising events.
Well, I come from a nonprofit background. I worked in the theater for years, on stage and off. I moved to California to work in the development department of a regional theater out in the East Bay. And there was just a point where I felt like I had done everything I could do there. And, I was doing their special events, but also managing their annual fund. And I felt like if all I did all year was throw the gala, I would be so happy. And so I just kind of...
Why not throw tons of galas a year?
Exactly. So, I just sort of left my job and started an event planning company. And initially I thought, I can do corporate and I can do wedding and like events are events, right?
Sure.
But I don't have the warm and fuzzy thing that you need to be a wedding planner. Like she is not me. That is not my strength. And corporate events are kind of their own animal.
Sure.
And I understand fundraising and I understand how to create a narrative arc in an event that will lead you to that fundraising point. And very selfishly, most annual galas, they happen every year, right? It's that third Saturday of March every year. And so, I have clients that I've worked with now for over a decade.
Nice.
And I can kind of look at my calendar, in August and already know for 2026 next year, like, I'm probably going to be here in August and here, it's very stable in that way.
Like working in the nonprofit world is not a get rich quick scheme, but it definitely is very fulfilling on a personal level. And it also, I've found like you, I have clients that I've been working with for a long time. And I found that building those relationships and getting to work on an event year after year, getting to know the culture of that event and their donor base are really valuable and rewarding.
Well, we had an experience together one year, and I don't want to like name any of the organizations, but it was a destination wine event.
If it's a good event, if it's a good experience, our motto is name the good ones and keep the bad names out. So let's find out where this goes. It
was a wine auction in another state. I'll say that. And there were some donors there that were unhappy about, I think it was like their table placement or something. And they were standing at the edge of the tent. And you know exactly who they are. They're really big bidders.
Yes.
Auction.
They were our big bidders every year, and they always wanted certain trips, and they were. You could rely on them to help account for 15% of that auction.
Right. And there was something had happened with their table assignment where they weren't happy. And so they're standing on the edge of the tent and they were going to leave.
Yeah.
But we both, I don't think you were there in the immediate conversation, but together we had a relationship that we'd built with these donors over the years. And so I'm standing and I was like, no, don't leave. Like, let me see if, and I was able to help like sort of keep them engaged and like talk them down off the ledge, like while as someone had been dispatched attached to like, you need to go fix this table assignment because you're going to lose these bidders.
Right.
And we were able to keep them in. And, you know, I don't know, toot my own horn or whatever, but it was because I had been there and this organization had invited us to the Winning Bidders Breakfast every year and to all the different cultivation events. You'd been going to vintner dinners and all these things that like we were people outside of the organization that had built really good relationships with their donors and kept some really big bidders from leaving that night.
And if I remember correctly, that power couple wound up buying one of the big trips at the end. And when I say responsible for 12 to 15%, it's not just purchase power, it's bidding people up. Bidding people up is such a service and it is so valuable. And we can come back and talk to that in a moment, talking about that. But hashtag foreshadowing.
Spoiler alert.
How many events a year do you think you do right about now?
So it ranges. I think in my peak years, and by peak, I mean, I was doing the most from like 2019 to 2021, I was doing like 50 to 60 events a year. I did 60 in 2020. A lot of those were virtual.
Yeah, okay.
But it's a lot.
No.
Even in 2019, I did 50. Wow. It's a lot. So that is, I mean, did I do it well? Who knows? That's questionable. I think the comfortable number for me is like 35-ish. That's what I feel comfortable doing.
Sure. And what's the scope of your involvement at that point?
It really ranges. I've got clients where I do top to bottom event production where I mean, everything soup to nuts. I'd like to only have 4 or 5 of those a year because those take a lot of focus. Right. And then the sort of next level down is clients that I'm working with where I really come in and focus just on the auction, where I'm working with the auction committee. Okay. I'm helping chase down donation forms. I'm writing catalog copy, creating all the collateral that goes with an auction. Like there's a lot of stuff there.
Sure.
And then I have clients where I'm doing just event night support, whether that's software support. There's a couple of different software suites that I work with doing that, or some events where I come in and I do underbid recording.
Shout out Greater Giving.
Giving, Give Smart, One Cause. Those are the ones I see the most. I'm using QGive for the first time ever.
Yeah, you ever worked with ClickBid?
I have worked with ClickBid. Yeah, it's been I think the last ClickBid event I did was 2021.
Yeah, they came big out of the pandemic, but Greater Giving obviously is our bread and butter out here. West Coast company.
ClickBid was actually back in the day when Greater Giving first had mobile bidding. They had a white brand, like a white label ClickBid for it. So I was super familiar with ClickBid back in the day, and then now Greater Giving has their own sort of version. So ClickBid's been around, but I just don't see them, as often.
East Coast based, and they were very much very great in the pandemic.
Yeah.
They had found a lot of usage of them. They were the hybrid solution.
Well, they had I know, it's okay. They had a really nice streaming platform where you could stream directly to their software without having to go through YouTube or Vimeo. So you had a second delay. Like it was the shortest delay. Yeah. That's what ClickBid was great for.
But now Greater Giving is primarily who we work with on the West Coast.
Mostly, yeah.
Yeah. Worked with them for a long time. What variety or of event, it's easy for me to mess up. What variety of event size or budget do you think is like in the Beth Sandefur wheelhouse?
I feel like, I don't know, that's a hard question to ask and somewhat. I feel like my sweet spot is an event that's maybe 400 to 600 guests and then raising, roughly $500,000 or more.
Those are big events.
Those are big events. Yeah. I mean, I've got many events that are multi-million-dollar events. Sure. Like they don't, that are still in the like 400 to 500 guest range. There's one event I work with that they used to have 1,100 guests. Now they're down to like 700, which is still a lot of people. It's unusual for me to see an event that's less than 150 people. And I think the smallest event that I work on, which is actually one of my favorite clients, I think they grossed like, I remember the year they grossed 110,000. They were stoked because they'd never raised that much before. They were so happy. So,
And one of the things that I always encourage every client to do is to not get hung up in comparing themselves to other events. Yeah. Because that just leads to jealousy and a sense of inferiority, because you can just keep going straight up the scale till you get to the Robin Hood Foundation in New York. And the most I've heard them raise was 72 million. And if that's your comparison point, of course you suck, right? But if 110 is your high point, yay, right? You got there, you achieved something new. And with, I think what's joyous about the work that we do is it's really measured in emotions in the moment.
Well, and that's a good point, because I have an organization that I work with a lot. They're my biggest client both in the amount of money that they raise, and they do multiple events with me per year. And we had an anniversary year a couple of years ago, weekend wine auction event that raised $21 million, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
This year they raised 12. And so to go for, it's kind of like, oh, it's only 12. Like, it's only 12. Like, 12 is an amazing number.
Right.
And everyone was very happy. You know, yeah, everyone was really happy with that. It was the goal. Like, we exceeded the goal actually slightly. So yeah, but like,
I like reasonable goals too.
Reasonable goals, but I just like even comparing yourself to yourself, sometimes you can get trapped in.
Yeah,
you know?
Great point.
Yeah.
In the work that you do with the nonprofit organizations that you serve, what is the number one issue nonprofits should address in advance of their event?
This is like, I'm glad you're asking this. I don't know if I would quantify this or qualify it as the number one thing, but I will tell you that there's an area that I wish more organizations paid more attention to.
Okay.
And that is logistically what registration and checkout look like.
Okay.
Because I've said for just years and years and years that registration and often auction checkout, because most events that have an auction, it's like the same desk, you know, the same location.
Right.
It's your first impression and the last impression that your guests have.
Okay.
Right. One Cause actually just recently put out a survey. They surveyed nonprofit workers and also attendees on auction trends in 2025. 70% of gala guests rated check-in and check-out is like a very like an important critical part of the event.
I'm an auctioneer. I love repeating things. Can you say that again?
Yeah. In a survey that was done recently, 70%. Yeah. 70% of gala attendees rated check-in and check-out being smooth is like a critical component of an event. And so what I see happen, I'm happy to detail for you if you want as a follow-up, like what an ideal check registration situation looks like.
Please, it's why we're here.
But what I see happen is that it's like, oh, well, we'll do registration over there, and we don't have adequate table space.
Okay.
We don't have access to power. Wi-Fi can be sketchy. And if you're needing to run software and swipe credit cards, that's problematic. I will show up at an outdoor event, and it's great during registration when the sun is out. And then at the end of the evening, when I'm trying to manually do data entry from the funding and people are checking out and it's dark because no one thought to put light trees up there. I've had a generator go out on me, and I'm there by the light of my cell phone trying to, type into my keyboard. And it's like, people just don't think about it. And I think it also happens on a level of, when clients are picking a new venue, they'll go to the venue and all anybody thinks about is, well, how many people can this ballroom fit?
How many tables can we get?
How many tables can we, and they don't think about, where does the silent auction go? Where does registration go? Like, where did the bar, like, where do all those things?
Yeah.
And it, and then it's tricky. It's tricky.
It's very tricky. I mean, and it's one of the questions that I wasn't ever really cognizant of until an upcoming event that you and I are working on, where you're like, oh, hey, where do we put registration? And it was like, oh, yeah, no.
Well, and the venue couldn't believe that their Wi-Fi didn't work once you go outside the doors into the outside. And I'm like, I promise you, I'm on the right Wi-Fi and it doesn't work out here. Like, I don't,
So not near the top of the list for every nonprofit organization planning an event is to think through registration and checkout. Yeah. Not just location, but also logistics in terms of power, internet, all those sorts of good things. I know that you have a whole, like, we've done many presentations together over the last decade and a half. We used to do them in person, but
Oh, the days.
Oh, the days of driving to Monterey and setting up in some weird little room.
For the chip sandwiches.
I don't want a vegetarian sandwich. But over the years and all the presentations we've done, you've had some very specific metrics for registration, check-in, and numbers. You mind my asking?
Yeah, I mean, events ultimately are hospitality, right? So you have to think about, what is the guest experience at every single moment of your event. So if I had my perfect way to set up a registration, table, I like to have either bar height counters that you brought in, or put your banquet tables just on risers so that you're at eye level with people. They're
Sure.
not having to talk, sort of down over you. And that really helps out the conversation.
There's a weird power dynamic if somebody walks in and immediately they're towering over you.
Yeah, there is. It's weird.
Especially if your volunteers are all young women.
I mean, once or twice, I went to an event recently where I was like, wow, I wish I'd really practiced sitting down in this dress before I got to the venue, because I would have worn a different dress, had my wrap, across my lap in a way that, I mean, so that's, it matters, right?
It's true. And 70% of people think it's one of the most important things about an event.
Yep.
So
the other thing is just space. Like when you think of, you can do registration a couple of ways, right? Like typically you have a computer and you're swiping a credit card and there's a program or a bid paddle or some combination of things that you're giving people. And there's definitely a model where you can have stuff on the table. And so at registration, you're just handing people escort cards that tell them what table to go to and their stuff is at their table. Then there's the model where you have a front table of computers and a table behind where all the paddles are. You need to have enough space between those those tables that with someone sitting at a table, there's enough space for a volunteer to walk behind you.
Right.
And sometimes in certain hallways or foyers or whatever, it just gets really tight.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times I'm like, stuff, tables ahead. And then the other thing is like sort of if you think of the horizontal space, right? Like you need about 3 feet of space for each registration station. So at a 6-foot table, I would put 2 registration stations. You can squeeze 3 at an 8-foot table. Because what'll happen is let's say you have registration stations A, B, and C. A couple will walk up to registration A and they sort of spread out, and maybe the woman's fussing with her wrap or whatever while the husband's checking in. And then a second couple comes in and they go to registration station C, because that's what they can see. And they also spread out.
Right.
And then you've got registration station B who's in there and is totally free to help the next person who's standing in line, but can't actually help anybody because you've got your 4 people, are sort of standing out there because you're trying to cram all these stations into too small of a space. And you end up, you can't even use all of your stations. So you need to spread it out.
Do you have a line concierge or somebody who like stands at the front of the line and directs people?
Like to. So two things in there. I like to have greeters to act as line management.
Great. Okay.
I think it's also honestly helpful, particularly at some venues, if you give your registration people a pom-pom or a light up wand or whatever, they can be like, oh, I'm over here. Yeah. Like that
like
is
a Trader
helpful.
Joe's.
Yeah, exactly. Because people aren't always comfortable, like, I'm here, I can help whoever's next or whatever. So they wave something. And then I also like to have my regular registration stations, and then I have a concierge station.
Got it.
It's usually me if I'm at registration, that if there's any kind of, their name tag needs to be reprinted, or, well, Betty got sick and so my friend Sue came instead, or, I need the replacements, or the corporate table that didn't give you all their names or whatever, all of that stuff can get, we'd love to have you step to the end of the line and our concierge can help you to like deal with those things to keep the other lines, moving along. And then the other thing that the greeter or line management can do is people register and then they take 3 steps back and they turn and they start talking to the friends, and you get these like clumps in front of, and you need somebody to like, oh, we'd love if the bar is this way, head over here, just to kind of clear people out.
So this may or may not be a relevant question, but from a registration station logistics standpoint, are you a fan of giving people cocktails before they arrive at registration, like having champagne served to the people waiting in line?
I mean, I don't hate it.
Does it interfere with the logistics of registration?
I think what happens is it's one thing for someone to be futzing around with when they haven't maybe yet gone to coat check. I think of like if coat check is before registration and the code and
you're handing them stuff.
Yeah. So I'm 6 of one, a half a dozen of the other. I think if you have a line, it does a lot to pacify people.
Right. I think it depends on the length of the line as to whether or not cocktails are necessitated, which brings up a follow-up question of what is your math for number of registration stations per attendee?
It used to be 1 station for every 75 to 100. And now I like it at 1 for every 50 to 75.
What changed?
I don't know, honestly. Okay. I just feel like I would rather have more people getting things through faster.
Sure.
Like, I just would rather have more. I would rather be overstaffed than understaffed.
Fair enough. And more is better in that case.
More is better.
Like,
yeah.
nobody's going to complain about getting through a line too quickly.
Yeah. And also,
oh my God, that line was so short.
I know, right? And also working with clients to get people pre-registered. If it's an event where we're swiping credit cards, like really encouraging pre-registration, because then it just expedites. And that's another thing you can do if you do end up with a line. I've had someone with an iPad go and work the line and just be swiping credit cards. And then so when the person gets to the line, all they're having to do is pick up their program.
Interesting.
Or their escort card, just cuts it down a little bit.
And for that to be possible takes a certain level of familiarity with their payment processing system. It takes capacity for their payment processing system to be able to do that. So I'm presuming that's a greater giving function among others.
Well, that specific where I have people working down the line is greater giving. GiveSmart has a really nice text prompt that you can send out to people, encouraging people to put their credit cards down. There's some other... but yes, using whichever tool, the software. Greater Giving also will set up a pre-registration page in advance that we're pushing out with all the other email marketing.
I was going to ask, how do you get people to register their credit cards in advance? And it's
a lot of, the message is, well, this will expedite your registration on site. We'll have all your information. We don't have to ask you for anything else. The thing that I have found to be wildly successful is to offer some kind of raffle.
Cool.
Of if you have pre-registered by, noon the day of, or, whatever cutoff you need to make it feasible for yourself, and give somebody, $150 restaurant certificate, a bottle of wine. Like, people just want to win. Right. It doesn't have to be super high value. They just want to win.
And it amazes me how much people want to win at every level of tax bracket. And it doesn't matter what it is as much as it's just like, oh, I'm going to do this anyway.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to chance to win something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And alcohol, liquor, wine, it's the currency of our workspace. So,
and then all of that stuff I think applies to checkout as well in terms of like, you need space.
Sure. Okay.
You need space to bring, if you've got a silent auction, you need space to bring those items to where they're sort of corralled. You can kind of manage and then the thing that happens to me a lot at checkout that it's not my favorite is that I'll be 20 feet from the band.
Oh.
And then I'm spending all night screaming over the band to be heard at checkout. And I just it's the worst.
So again, in terms of thinking about like going all the way back to the top, think about the logistics of check-in and checkout, like providing not just an adequate space, but an appropriate space for the conversation that has to happen. Because, and I think this is one of those duh moments where you get to watch a middle-aged white guy come to a realization on camera. Those are always fun. But one of those dumb moments where you're like, oh yeah, if somebody just spent the most money they're going to spend with you over the course of the year, whether it's $250 or $250,000, you don't want them yelling. You don't want them to have to yell to be heard at checkout.
It's, are they splitting an auction item between, if it's a live auction item, people will split a trip between friends, or they want to pay for their auction item with their credit card, but they're paying with the donor advised fund for their funding need. And like, they're doing stock, or can you send the whatever? And like all those conversations, like, if you're like yelling over the band to be heard, it's just not a great experience.
Yeah. And for anybody. For your volunteers too. You want your volunteers to want to come back and do your event again.
Yeah.
Right. Because if they're volunteers, you're paying them in emotional experience, right? You're rewarding them for participating. And if you send the message to your volunteers that, I didn't think about you.
Yeah. And so going back to your original question, it's like, is this the number one, like most important thing? Like, I don't think so, but I think it's important. I think it's the kind of thing that when it's done well and done right, it should be the kind of thing that people don't realize, like when things are done well, they don't realize how hard you work to make it like that. It's just seamless, smooth guest experience from when the time they arrive to the time that they leave.
I like to make my job look so easy. Volunteers think they can do it.
Yeah. And we've seen how that goes.
We have. I met a guy this weekend. He's like, oh yeah, I have an auction. We raise more money than we raised tonight. And I'm like, great. When you want to raise more than that,
let me know. Exactly.
So I think this is a roundabout follow-up question, but do you have a favorite venue? Is there a space that you like? This space has everything.
I mean, for years and years, the Four Seasons in San Francisco was my favorite venue.
Sure.
I would
then
say
David went to Vegas.
Exactly.
And took it with it.
One of my besties was a director of catering there. So that, I got away with, they just let me do everything at Four Seasons. It was amazing. I will say that I prefer an indoor space to an outdoor space.
Fair enough.
People don't like hotels because they're like, oh, well, hotels look the same and everyone's gala looks the same. And I don't think that's true if you have a decor budget where you're changing things. But like the really nice thing about a hotel is that they have stuff. They have pens, they have lights, they have extra chairs. Like they have all the things.
They have temperature control.
They have temperature control. Yeah. If you're in, there's some beautiful, I would call them like warehouse style venues that are great. But if you didn't bring it on the truck, you don't have it with you.
Right.
And so I really,
going to Fort Mason,
you make sure you put it in your car.
Yeah.
Or you don't have it, So there's something about a hotel. I think I will always prefer like a hotel for that.
Sure. I know you love data and are very data-driven. What is the most surprising thing the data revealed to you?
I love that you asked this question.
Again.
I think you probably know where it's going because we've had this conversation before. I think the most surprising thing that looking at data has ever revealed is how people are really behaving in the auction and the fund a need.
Okay.
So one of the services I offer is underbid recording. Mm-hmm. So I go to an auction, I attempt to record every bid that is placed in live auction and fund a need.
Right.
It's a little bit of an inexact science. People head nod the auctioneer. Someone's in the dark in the corner. You can't quite see, but I can usually capture about 80%.
And that's every bid that takes place, not just winning bids, because winning bids is a great measure of who bought stuff in your auction. Every bid reveals bidding behavior on a much deeper level.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll take that data back, do a bunch of number crunching, and then I can turn over, it's like this multi-page report that lists a bunch of different metrics and benchmarks and analysis for your auction.
Sure.
So two of the things that I like to look at, one is what percentage of your audience was engaged in your auction and fund a need, meaning how many paddles were raised.
And I always tend to think of events or bidding units as number of couples. So 350 people is 175 bidding units. Is the math equal across all events?
Yes and no. Some organizations will assign a paddle to a couple. Okay. Other organizations do a paddle, like everyone has their own individual bidder number.
Okay.
So in your organization report, I'm going to crunch all the numbers based on how you have assigned paddles.
Okay. The metrics and culture of your event.
Yeah. Sure. When I look at aggregates, instead of, let's say, an event that has everyone on individual bid numbers had a 30% engagement, instead of saying, okay, well, everyone was a couple, that's 60.
Right.
I multiply it times 1.75 because you do have singles that attend. So whatever 30 times 1.75 is, so it sort of evens it out a little bit, right? So when I look at that aggregate sort of across all the years I've been doing this, all kinds of different organizations, different states, different types of auction, everything, the range that I see of total percentage of engagement in an auction is anywhere from 37 to 63%.
Okay.
Couple of low outliers
and
on
that's,
that list.
That's
Auction
and fund a need.
Live auction and fund a need. Doesn't take into account silent auction and raffle in it.
Raffle tickets, wine wall, any of that.
Just live auction and fund a need.
Right. Okay.
So good median in there is like 54%. Okay. So I say it's kind of soul crushing in a way because I feel like most auctioneers I know love to get to the last level, the fund a need.
Here's the 100% participation number.
Yep. And I've just never seen it happen. And I hope that it happens for you, but I just haven't ever seen that.
Come close, Beth. I swear. Well, and this reminds me of that conversation we had 15 years ago that sort of started this whole, or maybe 17 years ago, we started this whole data-driven conversation where I was writing a blog post on the number of participants you need to make your fund a need successful. And your numbers, you were like, no, Greg.
Well, and I think it is important to there's the perceptual experience, the emotional feel in the room, and the number. And maybe the number is, we only got to 63%, but if it felt like everyone in the room was behind it, Is that what's more important? Probably.
I mean, and only 63%. I mean, by your metrics, like that's like the freaking best fund to need that in terms of percentage participation.
Think too, like so many events, like are there staff members at tables? Are there like comped community partners? The whatever, like, So then of that, if we're looking at just the universe of people, the paddles that were raised in your live auction and fund need.
Yes.
So the trend, the average sort of numbers that I see, first I'll say percentage of bidders only raising a paddle in a live auction. I have seen that range go from 10% to 45%.
Huh. Interesting. So up to 45% of people participated in the live auction, but not the paddle raise. And this is an event that had both.
Correct.
Okay.
So in terms of averages, I think it's pretty safe to say 54% of your bidders are fund to need only.
Huh. Okay.
25% are doing both fund to need and bidding in the live auction.
Okay.
And 21% are bidding in the live auction only.
Interesting.
So, and why I find that interesting is there's a lot of conversation about where to place the fund to need in the lineup. If you have an auction that is, 13 plus auction items, you might think about, do we put it in the middle? Do we put it 2/3 of the way through?
Sure.
I've had people ask, should we do fund to need first? And inevitably, there's that one guy, it could be a girl, but it's that one person who says, oh, no, we need to have it at the end because people come with a budget. And if they don't spend it in the auction, they're going to spend it in the fund to need.
I've heard that argument so many times.
It's not true.
It's not true. And I think this goes back to another one of the data points that you unearthed a while back. And any one of my clients who's been through a meeting should be able to recite this with me now. But actually, it's your data point, so I'm not going to mansplain your data. But I was shocked by how much somebody would donate in the fund to need if they bid on an auction item but did not win that auction item.
Yeah, because I just said there's like 21%, right? We're bidding in the live auction and just aren't participating in the fund to need at all.
Sure.
But there's some there's some that will.
Right.
But it's not if that person bid up to $20,000 in the auction, then they're going to turn around and give a $20,000 fund to need gift.
Right.
No, I think it's very common to see someone give 10 to 15% of their max bid in the auction in the fund to need. So someone that bid up to $20,000 and turns around and gives you $250.
Right. Yeah.
So we have to have the funding at the end because people will spend all their money. It just doesn't hold water.
No.
For me.
No. And actually to take that and twist it in a different way, it also led me to embrace consignment lots more in live auctions, in the sense that here, I used to think that if you're using a consignment lot, you're basically taking money out of the room and giving it to a consignment company. And so if you pay $2,500 for a trip to Cortona through Sojourn Ventures, and then you sell one at $5,000, well, you've only made $2,500. But on the flip side, we know that the person who bid that $5,000 is only going to give you $500 to $750 in the fund to need anyway.
Yeah.
And somebody who, one of the consignment companies is like, look, then put my thing last.
Yeah.
Make my consignment lot last, get to a price where you're comfortable selling more than one, and sell as many as you want. And I was like, oh, well, that's irritatingly logical.
Yeah. And I think, if you start looking at your own data and realize that 45% of your bidders are only in the live auction, then I think you have a messaging problem.
Sure.
And your people aren't connected to. But if you're down in that, 10 to 20% of the bidders in the live auction aren't participating in the fund to need, true, they might not feel connected for some reason. Maybe they're a guest of a corporate, or it's their first time, or whatever. Or some people just want stuff.
They want to buy.
They just want to buy stuff.
They like competition. They want to win.
Yep.
They want to, because and correct me, years ago, the Sonoma Harvest Wine Auction did their event at Sonoma Mission Inn. And so Sonoma Mission Inn was handling all of the redemption for their auction lots. And so they tracked this number very consistently and very thoroughly. And I've held on to this data and regurgitated it for the last 21 years. But they said 45% of auction winners don't redeem their lots.
Yeah, I feel like that's true.
And exactly. I think it's held up across the decades. And I think what it points to, it's not like, oh my God, that was a bad auction lot, they didn't redeem it. It's like, no, actually, that was a great auction. right? And you got people motivated and engaged, and the people who wanted to compete and win did. And then they got to their lives and they're like, you know what? We're happy that being a donation.
You get their lives, they get busy and things just don't get scheduled. Or I, at the organization where I used to work, I came back a couple of years later as a guest.
Sure.
Because my artistic director was leaving and I wanted to be at his goodbye gala.
Right.
And there was a buy-in lot where you could like come to a party, like say farewell. I knew I was busy that night and couldn't go. Did I have too many cocktails and buy a spot in the buy-in party? Anyway, I sure did. And then I realized what I had done and I was like, well, whatever. I guess it's just a donation and it's fine.
Right. Yeah.
And like it happens. And also those 2 bidders we talked about earlier in the event, in that wine auction, they don't give to the fund in need.
No,
they're auction bidders. No, like they want the stuff.
They want the stuff.
And I think it's like, it's valid and it's fine. Like, I think that part of what I like to do when I'm doing underbid recording for an organization is say, here's a bunch of data that gives you opportunities to have further conversations with donors, right? And bidders. And like, maybe someone has wealth capacity you didn't know they had and could potentially be a lead donor in the fund in need for the next year. Maybe you're doing some special event that features that winery or that guest artist or whatever that was in an auction lot, like that they might be invited to something, it's like it gives you ways to have conversations with people.
They're all touch points and means of engagement and donor development. Yep. Donor development should not happen the night of or in the weeks leading up to your gala solely.
It's a year-round thing.
It's a year-round full contact sport.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, I had a data question and it was gnawing on me, but I was trying not to do that thing where I listen, but I'm not really listening. I'm just waiting for my chance to speak. And then I forgot the question. It was something about data, something about auction lots. Auctioneers, we like to say that events are made by 15 bidders. And that's a number I got from my mentor, and I've kind of held on to that because it's easy math. But in those percentages that you're talking about most events having somewhere between 15 and 25% participation, I wonder how much of that is skewed by buy-in parties. And now I'm really wandering off on
but when I do underbid recording, which is when I notice it, because I'm really looking at it, by the end of an auction, I know. I'm like, oh, it's 344, 299, 295, 3. Like, I will know their bidder numbers. Like, I don't even have to see the guy's paddle. I know, like, oh, that's 281. And it is that. So that like 10 to 15. Yeah, I feel like that's probably pretty accurate.
I remember the question, and the question was, anybody that wants to do this should freaking hire Beth to come to her event and do underbid recording, because not only is she capable of capturing the bids, but the way she slices and dices the data afterwards, as you can tell, is in-depth and detailed. And there are large organizations that have been working with her for over a decade or bring her back every year because she gives them an incredible insight into the ways that their crowd is behaving. But let's say you're booked on the weekend, somebody wants to do something like this and they can't hire you to do it. What are, and this is a curveball question, I apologize. What are some data points that events should track but don't? Like, one of the ones that I learned from you was, and this seems simple once you hear it, but fund the need gifts by table, right?
Yeah.
That's like such a simple way to measure, like, is a table participating or not? Is that table sponsor or table host doing their job in terms of filling it? Are there any other like really simple, low-hanging fruit, like easy hit data points people can
by table, because I think it's, and that can then inform next year when you're figuring out table placement. Maybe you've got a board member that like bids a lot but doesn't need to be in the front of the room, isn't a huge sponsor, but like you can put them in the back room and all of a sudden the back of the room feels, exciting because someone's bidding back there. Like it can fit into stuff like that. I mean, I would think, look at your groups. If you have an advisory committee or an honorary board or, something like that, are they? Are they are they showing up, and giving?
Yeah, sure.
I had when I was still in-house at a nonprofit, we had a bronze, silver, gold ticket structure. And we were we wanted to raise our prices, and we were trying to come up with like, well, what is the percentage that we can raise each one? It's like math that makes sense. It's like, it's not weird and whatever. And it felt like the middle was going to end up taking a bigger hit than anybody else in terms of how much it was getting raised.
Sure.
And so without underbidding, just looking at who has won silent auction items, who's won live auction, what have they done in the auction? We laid that data on top of ticket sales data. And what we found out, I guess was my first surprise, our gold ticket buyers, them. We call them super supporters, right? They're buying the tables, they're sponsoring, they're doing all the things.
Leading the fund the need.
The silver level, they were buying at that level. It got their name on the invitation.
Right.
And then they weren't doing anything else because they had their name on the invite and I'm here and like, that's it. And the bronze tickets, like the cheap seats, were bidding a lot in the silent. They were buying raffle tickets. They were doing like, they were much more active.
So the lesson in this is bump the price on the silver tickets.
I mean, that's what we did. Yeah.
Sure.
It was like, they're going to go with that level because that they want their name on the invitation. And I think sort of the larger thing is like, just because someone bought the cheap ticket, it doesn't mean they don't have value to your organization.
Right.
Maybe they didn't win. Maybe they bid somebody up, maybe they're out there doing, their thing. I think there's value in
participation is support.
Yeah.
I mean, because one of the things talking about that arts organization here is one of the things that I remember was having all of the people standing around the room with glasses or clappers or whatever, and creating a sense of emotion, creating a sense of importance and urgency to the proceedings that really help bring the crowd along. Every level of participation is important.
Yep.
What's the most memorable event you've produced?
That's such a hard question to answer. It's like Sophie's Choice,
Sure.
The events that are the most memorable for me.
They're all your favorite kids. I get it.
No, it's the ones that are the most memorable. I don't know if I can swear on this way.
Where shit went wrong?
Where shit went wrong. Like where everything went wrong. It's like, oh my God.
Right off the bat, I can name the most memorable virtual event we did together.
100%.
Right? Yeah.
100%.
Thank you, Comcast, for the power an hour before we were supposed to have a virtual event.
Yeah. Oh God. We had rehearsed it. Stream was great. Everything was great. Comcast went down.
Yep.
The client fortunately was down the street from the studio that we were at. Yep. They were like on a different internet provider. They're like, well, we have internet. Like, well, we'll just go down there. And they were in construction trailers, right? Because they were building a new building. And so in these trailers, but they had internet. And we meaning me and the AV team, the Lux Productions, who I shared this office space with, we just started throwing stuff in cars. Like we were like, we're doing this, right? Like as we're packing up and go to hit the road, we all forgot to tell Greg. We forgot to tell you. You were like you were like, what's happening? Like, where are we going? I'm like, oh my God, get in your car and follow. Like, just go.
Actually, I kind of appreciate not being part of the stress out, because by the time by the time I found out, it was like, oh, well, there's no time to stress. We just need to go perform. So I appreciate that.
I think we only went on the air like 30 minutes late. And I mean, I couldn't even, it's classic nonprofit office, right? Like I pop up my laptop and I'm like, who has the Wi-Fi code? Nobody had the Wi-Fi code. And I'm like, well, can someone just turn on this computer? And can I just use this computer to do my things? And
that was,
that was so that. I had an event where I was just managing the auction. Sure. And it was the event planner had a falling out with the event chair and quit on event morning. Used TaskRabbit to send all the supplies and things that she had up to our venue, texted the event chair and was like, it's all coming in a truck. And so I became the event planner I was like, well,
just the drama of that alone.
And then they had hired somebody's friend that does AV that then didn't bring the right cables. And I was dealing with all this other, I didn't have a seating chart and all these, I was just trying to put out fire after fire after fire after fire. Right. And it was I will deal with that later. And I went down, it was at a winery. So I went down finally, guests are already down there. And I went down to see how is it in the barrel room where the auction is happening. Sure. And the AV guy had never found the right cable to use the screen. But instead of turning the screen off to where maybe you just don't notice that it's up there, it was the giant blue screen of death. Just broadcasting to everyone.
Nothing screams, shit's gone wrong.
And the auctioneer comes over to me and he was like, Beth, the auction items that are in the catalog, they're in a different order than they are in my script. What do I do? And I was like, my dude, you got to go catalog order because that's all people have to look at.
There's no screen.
It's in a kerfluffle. And I'm like, it's all they have. You have to go in that order. And, it was a mess. It was raining that day too. The reception was outside. I mean, it was so those are the most memorable.
Of course. I mean, genetically, we're wired to remember the bad things. That way we don't walk around the corner and get eaten.
Yeah. I will say, to have a positive note, one of my favorite events, it's also my smallest event, is Cancer Support Sonoma.
Okay.
They do an event called Wig Out.
Oh, fun.
Where everyone comes in like crazy wigs.
Sure.
And there's like a whole wig display set up around their step and repeat with like mannequin heads with all these kinds of wigs. Like the whole thing is wig. And
Fun.
it like really normalizes for their cancer because there are people that attend that
have to wear a wig. Yeah.
Just like, and you get ridiculous, terrible Amazon wigs.
Right.
But it's like, it just normalizes that.
There's got to be at least 2 guys who show up in clown rainbow wigs because we're guys.
Like mullety,
Sure.
80s hair metal type of like, it's great. It's great. But I just like everyone has fun with it and it normalizes it and it makes for the people that are there in a wig because they need to be or in some kind of head covering or wrap. Like I'll see people put, lights and butterflies and all kinds of things in their head coverings. And it just, I think is just really lovely. And I love that event.
Wig out in Sonoma. What time of year is that?
September.
Nice. It's coming right up. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense in
Yeah.
terms of the timing.
It's lovely.
What are the 3 things every charity should do from an event planning perspective?
I think you need to prioritize the fundraising.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is like make the fundraising important.
Sure.
Don't go start.
You see why we get along.
I mean, if that's why you're there, I think people need to know before they get there that it's a fundraiser. Right. The messaging needs to be consistent throughout. I think when you start throwing in honorees and awards and choral performances and then we'll have an auction at the end.
Right.
Like that's just not good. That's not good. Another thing I think you need to do, and this you'll recognize, your clients will recognize, I think you need to keep things fresh.
Okay.
Like, I don't mean reinvent your whole auction or your whole event every year. Cause I mean, what you do, but like, that's crazy to like completely do it. But you've for years, and I know your number has changed, so I hope I got it right. But like 3 new bidders, 3 new lots every year, right? Sure. Like if your model is that you have a reception with a silent auction and then you have seated dinner and a live auction of funding, and that works great. Yep. But like, don't just keep repeating the same auction items every year. Let some stuff have a rest. Get some new people in the door.
Absolutely.
That kind of thing.
A good fundraising gala is a donor development pipeline. Mm-hmm. It only works as a pipeline if you're getting new people in the room to participate.
Yep. And then third thing is I think you need to budget really strategically.
Okay.
Which is both... Just because you're a nonprofit doesn't mean that everyone should be donating their services to you because services cost money.
Sure.
And sometimes getting the free thing is actually going to cost you in some way.
Bobby D, who was on our podcast recently, and he talked about the free auctioneer who raised $35,000 less the year he did their event. And he's like, oh, so you paid that guy $35,000. And it was it's a sarcastic way of looking at it.
Or the AV guy that didn't bring the right cables because it was the AV front, you know what I mean?
It's like, you can't quantify that.
Yeah. So I think, and just being strategic, like it's okay if you have a lean budget. Sure. But like really pick and choose, like, do you need a $150 centerpiece? Like, no, I think people remember food and drink. Yep. I think sound is important especially if you're having an auction. Absolutely. I think you can get a lot of bang for your buck out of lighting. And all the other things start. A well-lit room with a very simple centerpiece and a standard poly linen is going to look great. You don't have to have specialty linens and crazy centerpieces and all that stuff.
We did an event. I mean, we still do this event, but for years we did an event where the sound system was great. Mm-hmm. The fans and the air conditioning, because it was in a tent outdoors in Napa in the heat of the summer, but we didn't have screens for years. Yeah. And then
a flip chart. Big old flip chart.
A flip chart.
And there wasn't a dedicated person to flip the flip chart. So sometimes one would be like, hey, we need him.
And I would forget, oh my gosh, we're on lot number 5. But I mean,
but it worked.
Yeah, totally. They raised tons of money.
Just being strategic about where you're spending money. And then
sorry to interrupt, but also strategic in a way that's appropriate to the culture of your event.
Yes.
Right? If you are an outdoor in the summertime event, then a flip chart makes sense. Black tie gala, flip chart.
Yeah. And then when I'm building a budget, I like to add in a 10% contingency line, just because
the shit goes wrong fund.
Well, in those last 2 weeks, like, oh wait, we need to get this extra thing printed, or we need to pay a rush shipping, or like just stuff comes up. Sure. And if I don't spend it, great, cool. That's money I didn't spend, but like it's there. It's there, just just in case something happens.
It also makes it nice to not be having to have conversations in the last second, like, oh, this is going to cost us an extra $300. Can we not having to have those conversations the day of? Yeah. The goal as professionals is to cause less stress, not more.
Right. Exactly.
And you are an amazing professional in that respect. In terms of stress, what are the 3 cardinal sins every charity should avoid?
I don't know if I have 3.
Okay.
I think I have 2.
Okay.
One is you cannot neglect the follow-up with your donors and bidders post-event.
Okay.
I think most organizations are pretty good about sending out thank you letters, and maybe there's an email that's like, oh my God, it was amazing. We raised so much money. Here are some photos. But as we mentioned earlier, donor cultivation, stewarding your donor, like that's a year-round thing.
Sure.
So are you sending an impact report to your sponsors that lets them know what was raised, how many impressions there were? Did you make sure that you got photos of their logo on the poster or on the screen?
Yeah.
I work with Tito's a lot. Shout out to Tito's Vodka. They have never, ever, ever, ever once turned down a donation request. They are so philanthropic. But one of the things in their writer, as it were, is that they want you to get a bottle shot. Like their bottle at the bar with whatever cocktail, and just go on the shot list and like, here it is,
Sure.
Are you doing that for your other sponsors? Like that kind of stuff like should be happening. Like you got to talk to people.
So follow up, sponsor recognition.
Yeah. And then I think, and this may sound selfish. If you are going to the expense of hiring a professional,
Sure.
auctioneer, event planner, AV company, let us do our job. Like, I don't think that we have to come in or I try not to come in with this God complex of like, well, I'm right about everything and I know, and here's my, expertise and you should listen to me. But like, also I've produced 475 events at this point in my life. Like this is not my first rodeo.
Right.
Like I know what I'm doing. Like I do have your best interest in mind, or I'll see organizations that are like, well, we can do, they just don't want you to, even though it's in your scope of work, they want to retain control of things and then they're overloaded and not doing them well. And I'm like, well, you're paying me to do that.
Right.
And I'm really good at that. And I do it really quickly.
I've got a spreadsheet for that.
Exactly. Like just let me.
I've got templates for that.
Or a sound company that's like, no, I think you need 6 speakers. And someone's like, oh, well, we only want to pay for 4. Like, okay, well, that's, I'm telling you need 6 because I know like with this space and how it's going to bat and all that, those sorts of things. Like, let us do our jobs.
And
like
if they're telling you need 6, believe them.
But I mean, we're your partners. Right. We want to partner with you on this event, and we want to partner with you for years to come, year after year after year. And like,
the goal isn't to do an auction once.
Yeah.
Right. The goal is to, and it's a selfish goal, but it's also, I don't know. I don't know about you. I'm going to imagine that there's way more money to be made in corporate events and weddings, right?
Sure.
There's way more money to be made in real estate, right?
Yeah.
I did not pursue that path because this is the path for me that has the most meaning and impact in the world, right? I do this because I love working with organizations that are making a difference in the world. And I don't get to meet all the people whose lives I impact, but I know they're there. Yeah. Right? And when I get done with my job and I'm driving home, or when I'm like grinding on stuff and I'm working on my 5th script of the week for when I'm in the busy season, like it's all made better by the fact that we're here to serve organizations. So the best way to serve an organization is to establish a relationship and work with them over years. Right. So we're not coming in trying to like swing our bats around and be like, no, it's more like, hey, we're here to partner with you. And part of that partnership is trust. It goes both ways. Yeah. We trust that you're going to put us in a position to succeed, right? And on the flip side is you need to trust us to enable that.
Correct.
So we didn't talk about 3 cardinal sins, but we talked about cardinal sins.
Well, neglecting follow-up and doing with your sponsor. I mean, it's 2-ish.
Yeah, it's good. How far in advance should an event contact you?
Oh my gosh, it varies a little bit on what kind of service you're looking for and what time of the year your event is.
Okay.
March, April, May, September, October are very heavy fundraising seasons. Yep. And those for me, they book out a year in advance.
Okay.
That being said, I have one free weekend in October. So if someone reached out to me, we're recording this in middle of August. So if someone reached out to me today and said, we need you for software support on October 18th, I would be like, yeah, I can fit that in because I have that date free. So, on my website, I actually have for all my services, like I recommend you do this one 9 months in advance or 6 months in advance, or whatever.
Okay.
Like, which is kind of the recommended, but it all kind of depends on, it's really when your scope of work and when your event is. Because if you're in a busy month, like, ooh,
yeah,
that's hard.
Some days I wish people did more fundraising in December and January. And other days I'm glad I get some.
Yeah. I mean, this is the first year I had. July is the only month that I didn't have any events booked because it's crab feed season in January in the Bay Area.
Sure.
Some schools that do crab feeds.
Great.
And then I've got 2 organizations that do December events. So
cool.
Sure. All year round. So great.
Good for you. Challenging for new organizations.
Yes.
Doesn't mean don't reach out.
Yep.
Reach out.
Yep.
Rapid fire favorites. Go-to coffee order on event day.
Water.
I
don't drink coffee or tea or energy drinks.
Wow. Okay. Most random thing you've packed in an event kit.
I keep plastic forks in my event kit.
For the obvious reason, or?
For the reason that a lot of times a meal gets brought to me and I have a very narrow window of time when I can eat a meal between.
Okay, sure.
A lot of times a meal will get brought, but they won't bring silverware. And sometimes it takes 10 or 15 minutes for someone to come back with it. And I'm like, so I just... Whenever I get takeout, I save the little, prepackaged like knife, fork, napkin.
Makes complete sense. Best song to get the dance floor jumping.
I think the classics are Living on a Prayer.
Oh.
Don't Stop Believing.
Okay.
Poison by Belle Biv DeVoe. People love that. And then lately, Pink Pony Club.
Okay.
Those are,
What's a piece of event equipment you can't live without?
It's the piece of equipment I can't live without is earplugs. As we mentioned, having to scream over a band. I finally invested in like the fancy ones for concerts where like you can still hear, but like you can have conversations, but it's sort of
fitted,
dulls the music. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I have.
I did one of those crab feeds. I worked registration one of those crab feeds with you, and we were right in front of the band. Yeah. And I just wound up using my earbuds because they have a mute. Noise canceling. And
it's the way some people have reading glasses and you've got like your car glasses and you're like, I've got 3 or 4 different pairs in all my little bags. Sure. So that I feel so old, but it gets loud.
It does. And I think we keep coming back to like, make your registration people, not like, don't put them in the line of fire, auditory line of fire. Dream celebrity to host your event.
I've already had them.
Who were they?
2 people, same organization, different years.
Okay.
Mindy Kaling and Tom Hanks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Those are opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of height and gender and all those things. But why were it's just personal taste. Yeah. You just love them both.
So Mindy, who was working with the 826 Valencia in the city, it was when they opened their... I guess it's a Tenderloin. It's around the corner from the Warfield. Like I opened that office, right?
Yeah.
And so she came to the facility early before any guests and like to get sort of the VIP tour. And she went around to every single staff member and introduced herself and was like, hi, like, what's your job? And was just really interested in what every single, and some staff members got so like Star Trek, they couldn't speak, And it was like, it was really cute and sweet, but I just thought it was really nice to like, cause I'm
the CEO.
Well, you don't see that always. I mean, I definitely worked at events. I mean, I did an event with a celebrity, shall not be named, that like never left his VIP tent until he went to sit down at the table. That like, and it was his foundation. Ooh. So I like that guy. So I really like that she went out of her way to introduce herself to everyone. And then Tom Hanks, also 826, a couple years later. 2 things.
Thanks,
so that event doesn't do a live auction typically. They're funding need only.
Sure.
But there was all this sort of Tom Hanks paraphernalia, like as part of the decor. Like we brought in, one of those like floor pianos, because of course you do. And he was like, I'll sign it if you want to auction it off. And so that auction ended up auctioning off that. And then we auctioned off that he offered to go tell someone a secret in their ear. And so I won't name the donor, but is someone who everyone in San Francisco knows, like paid a lot of money for him to come whisper a secret in their ear. So there's like a ton of, and he didn't have to do that. Like he didn't have to do that. Yeah. And then the other thing that he did that like, a little bit of pro and con because it went on so long that our program was like an hour behind schedule, but they had a panel where they had their like students like that were participating in the programs interviewing him. And he was so engaged in having conversations with those students. It went on like 2-3 times as long as it was planned for, but it was like such amazing conversation that I was like, no, it can go.
And if you're going to have your program grow long, have it grow long on something that's so mission focused and is in supporting the mission, both emotionally, educationally, and financially.
Yeah. So they were both, great.
Awesome.
They were great.
So Mindy, Tom, if you're out there, Beth wants to work with you again.
Yeah, totally.
What's the one question I forgot to ask?
I don't know. I think we covered.
Okay.
I mean, you and I could talk for 3 hours about.
We've come close to that at this point.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the new project you're working on? Because I kind of alluded to it earlier. You've got spreadsheets, you've got templates, you've got like the whole toolbox for nonprofits doing event fundraising, and now you're actually making it available.
Yeah. So coming soon, aiming for early 2026 launch.
No pressure. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it might come earlier than that. Sure. Honestly, we're really making a lot of progress. So I have partnered with Bobby D, who's an auctioneer friend of ours, who's based in New York City. And we are starting a new company called Gala Toolbox, where we are making available videos, spreadsheet templates, Canva templates, all kind of donor forms, like all kinds of things, really, like everything you need to run a gala, where you would be able to buy either as individual products or in like sort of bundle downloads. Sure. So our initial offering is going to be an event blueprint.
Okay.
It covers all your, why are you doing this? Like some goal setting stuff. Sure. The committee, types of committee you should have, your key vendors that you should have. There's an 11-month timeline.
Tell the auctioneers in there.
There's a lot on, but I'm an auctioneer and event planner. There's an 11-month timeline for planning your event. So there's a free version that you'll be able to download and just get that. Or if you get the paid version, you're also going to get, it's like 10 or 11 other, like a sponsorship tracker spreadsheet, a donor form, auction rules and regulations, auction tracking form, bid paddle template, best practices in PowerPoint. Like there's a bunch of stuff you'll get with that. And so then we're hoping to like continually be rolling out content, because we both, like, I had clients ask me for the same things all the time. Right. What text messages should we be sending out? Right. Do you have a form for that? Do you have a form for this? And so, you know, you and I have talked many times about how you get years deep into a relationship with a client and like there's staff turnover and all these things. And you're like, oh, we never had that conversation. Right. I thought you just knew that information. Yeah. And so I'm really looking forward to having this both available for other people to purchase, but Bobby and I also will be making tools available to our clients for free.
Awesome.
Like, here it is.
Link in the bio of this podcast. Yeah. You can also find more information about Beth Sandefur and Beth Sandefur Events on her website, bethsandefur.com. Link in the description of this podcast.
Galatoolbox.com if you want to sign up to be on the know when that starts rolling out. Yep.
Nice plug. Thank you for joining us on this Inside the Industry edition of Black Tie and Tails. As always, you can find us on YouTube or on all your favorite podcast distribution channels. Be sure to check out our other Inside the Industry interviews, as well as our regular podcast at blacktieandtails.com.